Hey, Mama Bear. Welcome to the Breastfeeding with Confidence podcast. Do you dream of bonding with your baby through exclusive breastfeeding, but worry about breastfeeding pain or low milk supply? Maybe you're struggling with breastfeeding and no one seems to have any answers. I'm Jaimie, doula, international board certified lactation consultant, and mom of 5, and I have been where you are. After working through painful latches, milk supply worries, and postpartum depression, and supporting countless mothers through their breastfeeding journeys for over 8 years, I'm here to tell you breastfeeding doesn't have to be perfect to be positive. Each week, I'll share breastfeeding tips to help you prevent and overcome unexpected breastfeeding challenges so you can actually enjoy bonding with your baby. If you are ready to shut out the toxic whispers of the world, embrace your God-given intuition, and release your inner fierce mama bear, grab some coffee or your favorite herbal tea, and let's dive in. Hey Mama Bears, I am back today with a frequently asked question that I don't think is talked about enough. Before we get started though, I wanted to say I apologize for the extra echo in here. Big news, I moved into my new office. I am so excited. This is huge for me. We've been working really hard on this. We actually have had this space for a while, but we had a guest staying in there, so I couldn't turn it into my office, and then we had to do some remodeling, and it's not done, but it's done enough that I can be moved in, and I am so excited. But I don't have like carpet or anything to absorb the echo yet, so I apologize if there's a bit of an echo. Hopefully it's not too difficult to listen to me, but I'm gonna try to be quick today. If you follow me on Instagram, you might have seen my remix that I did with a creator who in this video, she is being like super dramatic and covering her eyes and dumping pumped milk down the drain. And the comment says something about like when you decided you wanted to have a glass of wine and whatever. Guys, it brought up so much. So many feelings for me. And I want to share that with you guys today because when I shared that, I had a few comments on there being like, okay, but can I drink if I'm breastfeeding? Is it safe? Why would it be safe? How is it safe? And so I know there are so many misconceptions around this topic. There always are. And I want to start out by saying, I am not advocating for being a drunk. I am not advocating for using alcohol to numb the pain. Like, I am not advocating for alcoholism in any sense of the word. As somebody who's on the holistic side, I completely understand that there are a ton of health issues associated with alcohol. However, the reality is there are parents who are going to be in a situation where they may want to imbibe in a libation, all right? We need to not shame those women. There's nothing wrong with making an informed decision to consume alcohol while breastfeeding. So we're gonna dig into this topic briefly. And I wanna say again, this is super controversial and I don't quite understand why, but breastfeeding and pregnancy are not the same. They're not the same. Yes, our bodies are sustaining our babies, but in a very different mechanism, all right? So when you are pregnant and you drink alcohol, that pretty much goes straight to your baby. I would say there's still some debate on how unsafe that really is, and we basically take a very extreme approach of absolutely no alcohol during pregnancy because we can't do studies to show what the safe limit would be. However, what we know with breastfeeding is that our breast milk is made from our blood, okay? So we know that whatever our BAC is, our MAC is, okay? Whatever our blood alcohol content is, our milk alcohol content is, theoretically. So what that means is if you have one alcoholic beverage and your blood alcohol content from that single beverage is 0.2%, actually it would be 0.02%, I'm sorry, 0.02%, then that's what your milk alcohol content would theoretically be, all right? If your baby is consuming a beverage with 0.02% alcohol, that would be the equivalent of you consuming orange juice, okay? I think there's actually technically higher alcohol content in orange juice. And I know there's always going to be people who like, well, why are we using that argument? We're not giving orange juice to babies either. Okay, like obviously. The point is that a body is not going to be affected by a 0.02% volume of alcohol. But here's where it gets even more complex or interesting, okay? So if you, I always tell moms who are really, really worried about this, but also like really, really, really want to have a drink, that the best time to pump or breastfeed is actually while you're having that drink, because your blood alcohol content is going to peak at that 1 hour mark after the beverage. And then by the 2 hour mark, it's pretty much out of your system unless you're continuing to consume alcohol. So if you're, when your breasts make milk and you're holding milk in your breast, there is some storage capacity. So if your baby is nursing while you're having your beverage, they're having this milk that is not yet tainted. Your blood alcohol content has not peaked yet. An hour later, your baby most likely is not going to be ready to eat again. And then when they are ready to eat again around that 2 hour mark, that 2.5 hour mark, your blood alcohol content is negligible, is almost all out of your system by that point. That being said, truly, in order for your milk to have a dangerous alcohol level, you would have to be so severely intoxicated. So a lot of times the safety rule is people will say like, if you're safe to drive, you're safe to breastfeed. And even still, like, this is more about the safety of your baby, making sure you don't drop them, making sure you don't side lie and fall asleep and roll over on them and not know it because you are inhibited, right? That is where that's coming from. It's not actually coming from the milk itself being dangerous. So when you see these viral reels about moms being like, oh, I wanted to have a weekend with the girls, I'm gonna pump and dump because I can have some fun. It's so sad to pump and dump, watching all that liquid gold go down the drain. They're doing it for drama. It's rage bait. If you breastfeed and consume alcohol, you do not have to pump and dump. You do not have to give your baby formula. You do not even have to give your baby pumped milk. You can give them milk straight from the tap. Science really is pretty clear on this, and what I would say is it is up to each mom individually to decide what she's comfortable with. I do believe that. And so if you are not comfortable giving your baby milk after you've consumed alcohol, from an objective standpoint, I think that is leaning on the really, really, really safe side. However, it's your right. But you should be making that decision from a place of being informed and just saying, you know what, my gut tells me not to do this, instead of being misinformed, having a clear misunderstanding of what you're dealing with. And the worst part about it is that often gets pushed off as judgment on other moms. I cannot tell you how many times I've been literally standing there breastfeeding my baby with a drink in my hand, and people have said things like, you can't be drinking. And I'm like, first of all, you don't know what you're talking about. Second of all, mind your own business. I am literally an IBCLC, an international board certified lactation consultant, and there is data on this, there is information on this, and people will still be like, oh, you did what? And it's like, dude, for real? I've had moms who I know do consume alcohol, offer them a glass of wine, and they say, oh, I can't. Oh, are you okay? Is there a reason why? I'm totally not judging. Well, I'm breastfeeding. Like, I'm not saying you have to have this drink, but you can have one glass of wine while breastfeeding, right? I'm like, oh, it's not gonna hurt my baby? No. What? They're shocked. This is something that is, I want to say common knowledge, but it's not. This is something that is still so misunderstood. And so I just want to say to you, like, this is the truth about breastfeeding and alcohol. It is not inherently unsafe. You are not a bad mom if you decide to consume alcohol and breastfeed. If you do decide to do it and you're worried, I recommend breastfeeding at the same time you're drinking. Y'all can say cheers and drink together. Yeah. It sounds funny, but I'm serious. Like, the biggest concern is, are you safe to interact with your baby without harming them? That is the biggest concern. Your milk is not a concern. And of course, as always, like, use common sense, be smart, take care of yourself. I would never recommend binge drinking, like, in general, although we all do it sometimes, and that still probably doesn't mean you need to pump and dump. That is going to be a personal judgment call. But then you can always use the milk for something else. You can use the milk for a milk bath. You can use it. I really am curious if there are any studies on whether or not the milk alcohol content evaporates over time if the milk is like left in a container. I don't know if that has ever been done. Oh, and one last thing to say on this. People will often say like, oh, use an alcohol test strip. No, don't do it. Don't waste your money. That's stupid. Those are a gimmick designed to play on your fear. If you are informed, which this podcast just made you informed, you know that it doesn't actually matter. If it does matter to you, then just err on the safe side and don't do it. Those alcohol test strips are completely unreliable. They are not scientific. Do not rely on an alcohol test strip. Do not waste your money on an alcohol test strip. Do not fall for these gimmicks. That's silly. I will stand by that all day long. So that is my little spiel for today, inspired by Instagram. And again, when you see these creators being dramatic about their pumped milk and they've got thousands upon thousands upon thousands of comments and likes and hundreds of thousands of millions of views, make sure that you are double checking the information they're giving you. Odds are they're probably perpetuating some kind of myth about why they have to dump their milk, and they're doing it for views. I have even heard stories of it not being real milk and other people kind of, quote, whistleblowing on their own friends, saying like, yeah, I watched her do this and she filled it up with store-bought milk and then dumped it all for the optics. So please, please, please be careful what you're consuming on Instagram. If you have a question about breastfeeding, come to somebody like me to ask the question and get a clear answer that is based in data and reality. I hope you found this helpful, and I hope this answered your question. If you have any other questions you would like me to cover, go ahead and reach out to me at Jaimie Zaki at littlebearlactation.com or on Instagram at littlebearlactation. All right, Mama Bear, that is a wrap for today. If this episode helped you feel a little more confident or a little more prepared for breastfeeding, can I ask you a quick favor? Go ahead and leave me a review. It helps other moms find this podcast and join us in this amazing community of fierce and confident Mama Bears. And hey, if you know a friend who could use some encouragement or real talk about pregnancy, breastfeeding, and all things motherhood, share this episode with her. You've got this, Mama Bear. Trust your instincts, stay fierce, and I'll catch you in the next episode.